Hi, welcome to the Mamas at Work podcast with your host, me, Heather Rose. I'm so happy that you're listening or watching, whatever you're doing. This podcast is about the ins and outs of being a working mom, whether you have a 9 to 5 side hustle while the kids are napping, or you're an entrepreneur and you have started your own business. Either way, I'm here for you. What I want to do with this is to open up the conversation and help us feel less alone, because as moms it can get lonely, as business owners it can get lonely, and I would love to help alleviate some of that. So thank you for joining, and let's get going. Welcome to episode 1 of the Mamas at Work podcast with me, Heather Rose. For this one, what I want to talk about is just introduce myself, talk about why I wanted to start this podcast, and we'll just go ahead and get started. So, my name is Heather Rose, obviously. I'm 31 years old. I have 2 children, a little boy who's 7, a little girl who's 6, and they keep me busy. I am married to my best friend. We were high school sweethearts, and we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year, actually. So that's pretty awesome. So I had a plan. I was going to be a stay at home homeschooling mom. That was the plan for me. That started, I don't know when it started. It's been the plan as long as I can remember. Both me and my husband were homeschooled as children, and we loved it. And I still think it's an amazing option for a lot of people. It affords a lot of freedom, and you can choose exactly what your children are going to learn. And if you really enjoy educating, then that's definitely the way for you. But my world changed. My a little over 2 years ago, my daughter was diagnosed autistic, and it kind of flipped my world upside down, as she continues to do at least once a year. Just kind of turn everything around. I was quickly realizing that I could not be her educator. I wouldn't be able to give her exactly what she needed to grow in the way that she needed to grow. And that hurt, especially because of the plan. But I had to do what was best for her. And so after we got the diagnosis, I started enrolling her in therapy to figure out what she needed. And it was hard because her therapists were going to have her, well, the plan that we had decided on was going to be 4 days a week, 7 hours a day. And I remember that day, I'm so grateful for these therapists. They're just incredible, and they've been working with her so well. But that day, I had to fill out a lot of paperwork, because they needed to know where she was a little bit developmentally before they did their own assessment. And I went to a coffee shop with my laptop and just sat in the corner and cried. I felt like I was failing as a mom, which now I know I absolutely was not. I was doing exactly what she needed, but the plan had fallen apart. And I didn't know how to handle that. So I was that weird lady in the coffee shop crying at my computer while smiling, because I also knew it was good, but it was a hard time for me. So fast forward to 2020, last summer, the year of COVID. She was going to need to go to school, as was my son, because she was going to need to go to private school, because the way that the laws are set up in Colorado, her therapists could not go into the classroom with her at a public school. And I really wanted her therapists with her, at least for the beginning, for her to kind of get the feel of what a school is like. And so we actually took a look at my alma mater, a little private school, and it's a great spot. And they have loved going there, and it was wonderful to have her therapists there. But it's a private school, so it's expensive. So I was going to have to get a job or find work somehow during a pandemic. I didn't have a whole lot of workable skills, marketable skills, however you say that. I hadn't worked for 6 years. I had taken little volunteer jobs. I had worked at a nonprofit for a while. Um, so that helped a little bit. But the last real job that I held was right before I got pregnant with my son. Me and my husband were going to college, and I was working at the dining hall until I couldn't, because it hurt my back to lift the pans of food, and I couldn't wake up early enough because I was sick all night. So that was the last time I had a job. And I had had experience before that, but it had been a long time, and I felt very underqualified for anything out there, especially online work. What I really wanted to find was something I could do online so I could still be home. If the kids have a half day, if they are sick, I could still be home. Um, Plus, finding a physical job was very difficult because they're very few and far between during a pandemic. And I didn't want to open myself up to, a huge amount of risk. So I looked around last summer to see, because I had kind of toyed with the idea when the kids were little. I had toyed with the idea of um, online work and having a side gig when they're napping or whatever, but I never really found the time to apply myself. So nothing ever came of it. But last summer, I found a course called 90 Day VA by Esther Inman. So she teaches everything about being a virtual assistant, which ranges from email management, project management, to social media management. There's so many different ways you could go if you start off as a VA, because it's a really broad term. A virtual assistant kind of just does anything an assistant would do virtually, which was perfect. It got my feet in the door, and part of her program was actually creating some things that you could put in a portfolio, because when you work online, it can be really hard to get clients if they can't see any of your work. So what she did in her program was have little things for you to actually fill out and finish and have a portfolio to send to clients, which was fantastic. And so I loved doing that. I loved learning everything. It was fascinating to me, and I felt like it was something I could actually do, which felt so good. And then I had to get out there and find clients, which is a lot harder than you think it is. And so I actually found an agency called VBS, Verholt Business Solutions. The woman that hired me, her name is Christine, and she has an agency where she finds clients and she matches them up with the virtual assistants she hires. And so that was perfect, because then I had people vetted, and then I was vetted to them, so I didn't have to prove myself, which I have issues with self-confidence, so that was hard for me to do. And so it was really, really great to have Christine out there finding people and being like, hey, I think you would work great together. So that's what I've been doing mostly. And I was wanting to niche down, and I realized that I loved the section in my training for podcast management, which I've been listening to podcasts for a long time, but I'd never really thought about starting one or being involved in them at all. But I loved audio editing, which sounds silly, but it's like a puzzle for me. I loved figuring out how to make things work when they don't go well. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. And so that's where I am now. I have my own podcast agency. I help online business owners start their own podcast because sometimes it's just hard to figure out where to start or what to say. And so that's what I do, is I help them do that. And it affords a lot of freedom with time, which is really nice. That's the whole point of this. And so this podcast is going to be a mix between me talking about either the struggles of being a working mom or the amazing things about it. And I will also be interviewing working moms as well. I am so excited. I already have a few guests, and I'm so excited for you all to meet them and hear their stories. And if it makes you feel a little bit like, me too, that's exactly how I feel, then please email me, message me, find me anywhere. And I would love to connect with you and talk to you about this. And if you are a working mom, whether, like I said, whether you have a 9 to 5, a side hustle, or are an online entrepreneur and you own your own business, please talk to me because I would love to tell your story. Well, thank you for joining me for my first episode of Mamas at Work. I am hoping to grow this as much as I possibly can and have a whole community of people, because we know this is just 2020 has really brought it to light that community is such a big part of our lives, and that's what we need right now. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.